All right, it is time to do some news here on Truth Broadcast Network. Seems like I am on air more often than I am off air lately, but I'm trying to really get this information out there. So here we are on Truth Broadcast Network, and we're going to just click on, well, rather than click news there, we're going to go down to the category archives and click news there, so we're not limited to the last 5 hours that haven't scrolled out of the latest news thing yet. So we're going to open that up, and then we're just going to quickly scroll through the news. And what do we have? Cover-up suspected in mysterious Gitmo deaths. Now, personally, I have been detained. I have been arrested. I haven't been in Gitmo. I've been in various jails throughout the country. And it sucks to be on the inside, especially when you've got a medical condition like I've got epilepsy, and they don't want to give you your medication, or they don't want to give you enough of your medication. And Howard Nema just did a broadcast with somebody's mother whose son had epilepsy, and they wouldn't give him the right medication. And then on top of that, they tried to kill him by overdosing him on Dilantin. So let's see what's going on here. And I did just cover that they were drugging them, too.
And the night of June 9th, 2006, 3 Gitmo detainees were found hanged in their cells in an apparent suicide, as what the Naval Criminal Investigative Service purports, or better known as NCIS. Recently, Harper's Magazine published an eyewitness account of a military policeman describing what he saw the night of June 9th. His was just one documented account uncovered by Seton Hall researchers as released by FOIA. Together with the senior fellows at the Center for Policy and Research, the students discovered documents along with more damning evidence related to the 3 mysterious deaths that night. They've uncovered a startling mosaic paper trail that points to a systemic NCIS cover-up of the suspicious events that resulted in the deaths of these detainees. For example, a key statement by the medical examiner was extracted from the NCIS records and replaced by 3 blank sheets of paper. In the version that the students reviewed through the FOIA release, they found one of many disturbing accounts that one of the men was still found alive with faint vital signs as he hanged in his cell. I was joined earlier today by Seton Hall professor Mark Denbo. He was responsible for leading the team of researchers in this bombshell report. I first asked him what caused he and his team to question the original NCIS report in the first place.
Well, I guess the simplest answer was that the description given by the Admiral that night, which was that the 3 people committed suicide by hanging themselves in their cells, was an act of asymmetrical warfare. And there was something that my students were troubled about so callously disregarding 3 people's deaths as if it was a war attack. And then, of course, I did represent several detainees, so when the deaths were first announced, I, along with almost all the other habeas lawyers, spent an anxious 2 days wondering if our clients were alive or dead. And obviously, in my case, mine were not. We're all alive.
You mentioned asymmetrical warfare. Can you explain to us what that is?
Yeah, I think that that was a model used for a long time to explain the conflict that arises when you have a sort of plan for modern warfare, which is tanks, planes, people in uniform, machine guns, fighting other armies in uniforms with machine guns. But of course, the problem is there really are no more set-piece battles coming like that. I mean, nobody is going to go out and stand and fight the U.S. Air Force by shooting guns at them because we don't, the power is so great. So the future is going to be, in a sense, sort of chaotic and disorganized rather than set-piece battles for the last couple hundred years. And I think the use of the word asymmetric warfare, the phrase, was designed to show that the way in which acts were being done would be called warfare to justify the actual result. For instance, if these people did it as an act of warfare, then the assumption was There's asymmetric warfare, and there was no reason for anybody to feel sorry for them because they were just people who died in the equivalent of combat. And that struck us as sort of pretty harsh and not very plausible.
Right, so that was the first red flag. So tell us about the research process that you and your students conducted in uncovering these documents.
Well, it took 2.5 years, but eventually the NCIS investigation was published. And we decided to look into it. This would have been in 2008 and 2009 and 10. And there were 3,000 pages of documents in a big jumble, not numbered, redactions, sometimes small amounts, sometimes large amounts, dates messed up, names messed up. And it was clearly designed to make it, or at least it was provided in a way that made sorting through what NCIS found almost impossible. But my first set of students spent 1.5 years going through that, and they wrote a report called Death in Camp Delta. And Death in Camp Delta described what the NCIS actual findings were, not the conclusion, but the data that the NCIS investigators found.
Can you tell us what those were? What were those findings?
Well, I mean, for instance, if you believed the NCIS findings or data would suggest that 3 people in a cell block with 24 people in it, if it was full, and it wasn't, were guarded by 5 guards and on a round-the-clock constant video monitoring. And there was always at least 1 guard live on the floor at all times. But the NCIS investigators concluded that the men had been dead for more than 2 hours when they were finally brought into the clinic. That would obviously mean that if they had hung themselves in their cells, they had to be hanging there for more than 2 hours while being watched by guards.
So in essence, the guards let them hang, let this happen. They allowed it to just transpire right in front of their eyes.
No, I think probably my students, as they puzzled through this over and over and over again, couldn't believe that's what happened. And they said that if that were the case, and we have some soldiers who are also law students here, they said if guards were guarding 20 people and 3 of them died hanging to death in their cells for hours, the guards would go to jail. And one of the questions my students asked was, whatever happened to the guards who purportedly let 3 people hang dead in their cells for hours? And in the course of looking into that, they realized no guards were ever disciplined. And that led the students to conclude that however they died, it wasn't an act of asymmetrical warfare hanging in their cells.
Now, do you feel that there has been adequate media coverage of these deaths and the information that you and your students have uncovered? Because I feel like, you know, this is the first that many people are hearing about this, and no one questioned the NCIS reports.
Well, you know, I guess no academics ever think their work is appreciated enough or covered extensively enough in the press. But the first report, Death in Camp Delta, did generate a major piece by Harper's Magazine, in which they described a major investigative report of their own based on our investigation as, quote, suicides, end quote, in Camp Delta. And that created some interest, and several Congress people were interested in that. And several newspapers, the St. Louis Post-Dispatch wanted a special prosecutor appointed. There was some response, but not a great deal. I think there's a lot of Guantanamo fatigue, and I think that people would like to believe it's closed and gone, and there's a sense that people overlook it.
Sure. I have a feeling we're going to be looking a little further into this with you, a little further down the line. That's all the time that we have, Professor. Thanks so much. That was Seton Hall Law Professor Mark Denbo. Thanks for joining us, sir.
That's all the time we have for that, Professor. Thanks for joining us. The Superbug California market. Are we looking at fear-mongering?
We've heard of antibiotic-resistant superbugs making their ways through hospitals in the past, but a new discovery by Canadian researchers has taken the fear of this type of bacteria to the checkout line. For the first time ever, an extremely deadly type of antibiotic-resistant bacteria has been traced to a food product. The U.S. Center for Disease Control and Prevention published a study this week reporting that the bacteria was found in a package of raw squid in Saskatoon, Canada, in a supermarket. The store says that the squid came from South Korea. Dr. Joseph Rubin is one of the scientists behind the study. He explained to me why this is such a scary finding.
I mean, if you're eating raw squid, you should expect to get something. Now, I just did my broadcast, Death to the New World Order, that you can catch weeknights, 9-10 p.m. Eastern. This whole thing about ISIS insurgents that you see here is disinformation. The New World Order controlled military designed to up the violence in Iraq, justifying another U.S. invasion that you can look forward to in the near future.
Overnight,
they're probably going to show the very images that are fake. I hope not, because I don't want to take the time to point them out, but that's probably what they're going to do.
Clashes with Shiite militiamen in Bakuba, Iraq, leave 44 dead and much of the city in the hands of Sunni militants from the Islamic State in Iraq and Syria, or better known as...
I mean, come on. Are you retarded? That's a white guy. That's a white guy. And everything they're wearing is brand spanking new. These aren't terrorists.
ISIS. President Obama has already deployed 275 U.S. armed forces to Iraq to provide support and security for U.S. personnel at the embassy in Baghdad. Officials within the administration say that the U.S. is also considering airstrikes on areas now controlled by the insurgents, along with sending 100 troops to further train the Iraqi forces. As the clashes in Bakuba continue, government forces are focused on regaining control of the strategic city.
Now, what did I tell you before? Once they start showing you maps, and the maps will get a little bit more detailed and a little bit more detailed night by night by night, it means they're going in. It means your sons or your daughters, they're going to die so that the New World Order can take control. It wasn't enough to invade Iraq, quote unquote, free the people, bring them, quote unquote, democracy. They had to go back in order to, well, we gave you a chance to run the country, and you screwed it up. So now you're going to have to let us control it. And in they go, or should I say, in we go. What I'm saying is you are ISIS. They're bought, paid for, funded, and armed by the United States.
It's the last city between ISIS insurgents and the capital, Baghdad, as the Sunni al-Qaeda offshoot pushed the Shiite government further south with fewer and fewer government strongholds in the country. But just who is this group? Who is ISIS? We're hearing so much chatter about this organization, but how powerful are they? I was joined...
So you can see RT is in on the state propaganda here. They're not an exception. They may be the closest thing to the truth you can get in really professional grade media. But ultimately, they do the bidding of the New World Order.
Представьтесь, пожалуйста.
Володя меня зовут. Поехали мы сначала посмотреть дома, что снаряд попал. Просто, поехали ж туда вот.
В каком районе?
В Каменнобродском районе. Поехали ж по...
All right, wrong language. Moving on. This one says, ISIS closes in on Baghdad, joined by former allied tribes. Turned enemies. So it's the propaganda.
ISIS emerged in Iraq right after the U.S.-led invasion and pledged its allegiance to al-Qaeda.
I mean, I'm not going to play this. I'm just going to explain it. You may as well consider this to be a court of law, and this to be the prosecutor. You understand? And this is the victim. They're going to act like it's the perpetrator. The piece of land is the victim, but these dots here are the perpetrator. There was a bombing here. Somebody got shot there, and some bodies were buried there. They're perpetrators. So here's your prosecutor, and she's making a case to you, and you're the jury. You see, the New World Order has to get the consent of the people. It's not that they actually physically need your consent or your permission. But as I said on air tonight, they're operating by a moral code. And that moral code requires them to have your consent, even if that consent comes by way of your doing nothing. Again, silence is compliance. So if you do nothing, they have your permission. Because a nation or a world of people who do not use their intelligence are no better than animals who do not have intelligence, and thus are stakes on the table by choice and consent. That's what the evil New World Order believes. That's how they run the show. And so, even if you know what's going on, but you don't do anything, you don't say anything, then you've consented, and they're going in. And your children, their children, could get killed. That's how it operates. There's your lawyer. Remember, that's your prosecutor. Anytime you're watching TV now, you need to see it as a court of law. Prosecutor, victim. Then they'll play the video. That's the witness. Or they'll show you pictures. That's the witness. The problem is the witnesses are lying now. The pictures are fake. The video's doctored. Bunch of actors doing it. Again, I compare these things to magic tricks, and I suggest that you do the same. Well, I guess I'll do the narration in this one. 200-meter high Russia-Ukraine gas transit pipeline inferno. Now, there's been some things going on here where Russia's basically said the Ukraine better start paying their gas bill. And the Ukraine said, well, we don't have a lot of money. We can't pay it. I don't know who blew up the gas line. Russia could have just turned the gas off, but maybe they said, well, that would look kind of mean. Blow up the pipeline. Make it look like an accident.
Welcome to Sophie & Co. I'm Sophie Shevardnadze. Right-wing parties stormed the EU parliamentary vote, with British voters throwing their support behind the Eurosceptic UKIP bloc. But will the party's success transfer into something bigger? Well, David Coburn, UKIP member of the European Parliament for Scotland, is my guest today.
Why do we got nothing but clips from RT? Because that's just odd. It's like all our activists took the day off. Nothing but RT. What we can learn from the new CIA Twitter account. EU may face gas disruption if Ukraine siphons Russian supplies. That's kind of weird. It's like they're saying the Ukraine can just take the gas even though it's not being given to them. Well, that would kind of explain why somebody would need to blow the pipeline, wouldn't it?
Next, Europeans potentially face a cold winter ahead. That is if Russian gas destined for consumers gets lost on its way via Ukraine. Gazprom has warned that Kiev may start siphoning off the fuel from transit pipes that run to...
This is hilarious. This information was posted 10 hours ago. Now let's look at the explosion. This was posted 7 hours ago. That's hilarious. This honestly looks scripted. So they run a story saying, oh, the Ukraine can't afford to pay for their gas. They've been running that story for months. Then they run a story saying, oh, it looks like it's going to be a cold winter because the EU may face gas disruption if UK siphons Russian supplies. And then, oh, explosion. 200-meter high Russian-Ukraine gas transit pipeline inferno. Insinuation? Those cruel Russians blew up the gas pipeline in order to freeze the Ukrainians. I guess that's what they're going for there, huh?
Europe. Kiev's been cut off by Russia after it failed to pay its bills, and now Europe has to be prepared for gas shortages, as RT's Peter Oliver explains from Berlin.
Well, what we've been hearing from the EU Energy Commissioner Günther Oettinger is that, well, get ready for potentially a cold winter ahead. Now, this comes after Ukraine had its gas cut off by Russia after it failed to pay billions of US dollars in outstanding bills. Ukraine is the main point of transit at the moment for getting gas into Europe, and many European nations rely on Russian gas as either their main or, in some cases, their only source of energy. If those supplies are siphoned off, well, it can have an effect, as it has in the past when Ukraine's been cut off and they've started to take that gas. They did it in 2006. Last time was in 2009. 17 countries here in Europe reported shortages. 8 were completely without any gas. Amongst those, the most worst.
Massive twin tornadoes. Not too worried about that. Well, let's see if anything really important has come across the news wires. And I'm going to have to get this worked out on the site, why we are only getting RT. Nothing is coming up here but RT, and that's really not cool. Is it because I clicked news and RT is the only one in the news category? All right, well, let's take a quick look. Tornadoes. Constitutional Convention. This is how they want to take your guns right here. It's called a con or a Constitutional Convention. And they have to get all the states to agree to it, and they've been close. They've been close in the past, but they couldn't get there. Now, reading the text here, 100 legislators from 33 states recently got together at the Mount Vernon Assembly to map logistics for calling a constitutional convention. That means all they've got to do is twist the arms of 17 other states or buy off the politicians, and then they can throw away the Constitution, throw away your First Amendment right, free speech, throw away your Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms, throw away your Third Amendment right, throw away your Fourth Amendment right against unlawful search and seizure, throw away your Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. Throw away your just go on down the list. All of them gone. Boom. Done. That's what they're trying to do. You don't want a con.
We revere our Constitution. We hold it up to the world as a piece of art, really, equating its importance in the realm of government to the Bible's importance in the realm of religion. And yet, despite this reverence, in today's world of government gone wild, we can't stop talking about changing our Constitution.
No. The evil New World Order wants to change it. The people don't. The people that have brains in their heads do not want to change the Constitution. The mind control methods that are going to be in this video, I'm going to give you one right now. She said, we revere our Constitution. Invoking, summoning the spirit of Paul Revere, at least in your mind.
In the U.S., we revere our Constitution. We hold it up to the world as a piece of art, really, equating its importance in the realm of government to the Bible's importance in the realm of religion. And yet, despite this reverence, in today's world of government gone...
There you saw it again. Reverence. Using a different usage of the same root word. You think that's a coincidence? I showed you the one video where she said awake 5 times. This woman is, it must be their queen of mind control.
Equating its importance in the realm of government to the Bible's importance in the realm of religion. And yet, despite this reverence, in today's world of government gone wild, we can't stop talking about changing our Constitution. And now our lawmakers are getting more serious about that. More than 100...
So she tells you, we, as if you are her, we can't stop talking about changing our Constitution. No, the people can't stop talking about how bad they don't want the Constitution changed. She gives you the exact opposite and says the word we to pull you in to her thinking, and so many sheeple will go right along because, hey, she's a pretty girl. Sure. I'd be with her. It's elementary.
100 legislators representing 33 of our states attended the Mount Vernon Assembly in Indianapolis recently to discuss how to put together a constitutional convention. Under Article 5 of our Constitution, if 2/3 of our states, or 34 of them, ask for a constitutional convention to make amendments, then Congress must call one. Representatives from both sides of the aisle are behind the movement. You've got conservatives who are angry at how huge our federal government has become, along with our national debt. And you've got progressives who are angry at how our government is interpreting the First and Second Amendments. They don't like how corporations are now being granted free speech rights. And they want to clarify language around our right to bear arms. The Mount Vernon...
Clarify language? Which part of shall not be infringed did they not understand? It doesn't matter if they hold a constitutional convention and clarify the language. Because the people of the United States of America are not going to give up their guns. No matter what. There will always be lemmings who will stand in line to give up their guns for a $30 gift card at Walmart. But the majority of gun owners will never, ever give up their guns. This is a moral issue. It is a human right of self-defense that they're not going to give up on, ever, no matter what. No matter how many constitutions that you write, no matter how you clarify the language, you're going to have to kick indoors and kill us. And when you kick in the door, we're going to kill you back. So go ahead, clarify your language.
Assembly's goal is to work together as states to address all the ridiculous crap our federal government is trying to pull. That's right, railing against the government is not just for dissenters anymore. Nope, now even our states and our legislators are mad at the feds.
So here she's trying to make the insinuation that this New World Order agenda to take away your guns through a constitutional convention was your idea. And they even show you a picture of protesters. See that? Oh, this is you protesting 9/11, saying 9/11's an inside job. And this is you at the March Against Monsanto. And this is you trying to get the GMOs labeled. And here's the Gadsden flag flying. But of course, let's put it all in silhouette and make it all black so that nobody can think it's anything in particular. Constitutional Convention is not the idea of the people. It is the idea of the government. Because the Constitution was created to constrain the government and protect the people. The government wants a convention, so the people are no longer defended. Now, obviously, you're going to have your stupid lemmings out there who will support the notion, just like Mark Dice will show you. People will go up and say, yeah, we need to ban, hydrofluorosific. They'll say they want to ban water, H2O. They'll literally sign a petition saying they want to ban water because they won't use the word water. What do you think if he comes up and says, do you want to have a constitutional convention and get rid of the Second Amendment? People are going, oh, yeah, let's do that. Because they don't know what the Second Amendment is. They don't know what a constitutional convention is. Because the American people have become like a bunch of children. They say yes to everything. But she's trying to draw you in and make you think this was your idea. All of your years of hard work and protesting have led up to this constitutional convention. Good job, Billy. Finally, you can give up your guns.
States to address all the ridiculous crap our federal government is trying to pull. That's right, railing against the government is not just for dissenters anymore. Nope, now even our states and our legislators are mad at the feds. Attendees will be discussing how to set up rules and procedures to implement a real constitutional convention and how it all might be financed. Our country hasn't held a constitutional convention since 1787. So the Assembly is taking the first step of figuring out all of the logistics. These representatives aren't the only people within our government who want to change the Constitution either. North Carolina is writing up its own resolution to call a convention over campaign finance reform. And former Supreme Court Justice John Paul Stevens just wrote a book called 6 Amendments, How and Why We Should Change the Constitution.
Okay, that's enough. That's going to enrage me, and I need to move on. Ukraine water supply. America, the Walmart of fraud. Russian journalist killed in Ukraine from a mortar shell. Moment shell explosion hits Russian TV crew in the Ukraine. Now, I don't know if that actually happened or not, but we'll watch the video because we can.
Ага.
Well, if you're listening on the radio, that didn't look good for that Russian TV crew. Well, that's war, isn't it? Hey, there is something in here besides RT. We'll just play this for a moment, verify it works.
A report out of Indiana. You may have seen this on The Factor. Wait until you hear where we're taking the story. The report suggests that demons took over a family and their home. And Trace Gallagher has the details. Trace?
And Megan, the comparisons to the Amityville are notable because it was just days after the Ammon family moved into their house. They say the horror began. The black flies swarming, children being levitated, shadowy figures pacing the house. Here's the mother. Listen.
All right, for more on that, you guys can check it out. It's entitled Real Demonic Possession in Gary, Indiana. Strange allies talk of strikes, U.S. ponders response to Iraq insurgency. The United States is creating the Iraq insurgency. You see how they play both sides? They are ISIS, and now they're pondering how they're going to respond to themselves. Unbelievable, man. Origins of Magic, the Fallen Angels. You'll only find that on Truth Broadcast Network because I'm digging deep. Is demonic possession becoming more widespread? And I mean, honestly, you hear about the zombie apocalypse and the cannibal this, cannibal that. It's just getting crazy, isn't it? A fight magic with magic. Mega sentence. New UK cyberterrorism law may jail hackers for life. That's not fair. Police shoot knife-wielding man after he lit his car on fire in the middle of the freeway. That's kind of crazy. Hillary Clinton refuses to comment on Keystone tar sands oil pipeline. Well, if that's a short clip, I'd like to watch her refuse to comment. Because it's always telling when they do something like that. And if they take the Fifth Amendment out of the Constitution, well, we should be able to go ahead and begin torturing this wench, shouldn't we? I mean, come on, let's...
She is perhaps the most famous woman in the world. And right now, pretty much the only U.S. Democrat getting those kind of questions. Hillary Clinton has the experience, she has the support, but she has baggage too. The Benghazi...
Well, that's it. That's 19 minutes long. U.S. troops headed back to Iraq as ISIS, New World Order-controlled ISIS, alleged terrorist group, expands control. So as I predicted, we're going back in, and I can't stand to hear the voice of that scumbag. If you're listening on the radio, your dictator, I won't play it. Senator Murphy continues to use Sandy Hook Massacre to promote his gun control agenda, even though it's been blown wide open, and of course he looks like...
Without objection. Thank you, Mr. President. I hope the presiding officer and my other colleagues had a great Father's Day this Sunday.
Shut up. University student arrested for making threats to woman on Elliot Rodgers' YouTube videos. So a YouTube comment has gotten somebody arrested. Might have been a truth activist. Twin tornadoes. Michael Hastings calls out Pentagon propaganda news media from beyond the grave. That's Mox News. Their videos are long, and we may be getting rid of them. 12 minutes. And it's Rachel Maddow again. Why are they always putting on Rachel Maddow? I think we're going to get rid of Mox News, but I'm going to let it go a little bit longer, see how it plays out. And we make it to page 3. Nixon was indeed a crook. Saw that yesterday. Gas supply cut off after Kiev rejects discounted pricing. Let's click on news to get the latest news, and it is pretty much all RT. I'm perplexed as to why all we're getting here is RT. And something has got to change. There's a movie trailer. All right, that's the news for now. Stay tuned to the Truth Broadcast Network at www.truthbroadcastnetwork.com for more. Remember, we are on mobile internet radio, although it seems we're blocked from coming up in the search results for most of the internet radio players. We come up in Winamp, I believe. If you have a Winamp radio player, I think we come up in that. And there's another app that has the word streaming in it. We come up in that one. But we're blocked from coming up in most, even the mobile internet apps, because, well, you know who controls the Matrix.